Hello, everyone, and welcome into our Coffee with Coaches today. This is the first of what we hope will be many Coffee with Coaches. And we're just seeing some folks join us live now. So, as we have folks entering into the live stream here, we will kind of just start going to be respectful of everyone's time, but we're going to do some slow introductions so that folks who are joining a couple minutes later are not going to miss anything super important today. So again, welcome to Coffee with Coaches. My name's Heather Collier. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. I promise this intro piece, it's the most you're going to hear from me for the rest of the webinar. We have other
Heather,
people that I really want you to hear from.
can I interrupt you for a sec? Because I don't think we
Yeah.
can see you right now.
Oh, I did have my video turned off. You're right. I was trying to profile the speakers, but it's now I was just a weird voice in the background. Hi, folks. Today, we're here to learn a little bit more about what coaching is from three coaches who sort of look at coaching from slightly different perspectives, but all with a similar sort of core value underpinning it all. So, we're really here to find out more about what coaching is, who it's really for, and what it actually looks like in practice. Kind of in the day to day, in a session, what might you expect as you explore coaching? We're gonna have some time at the end that we set aside for some audience Q&As. So definitely make sure you think of some good challenging questions to probe our own coaches on today as we're in. You can pop those into the comments that are available, and we'll be watching for those. And we're going to have some opportunity to hear directly from the coaches in a little bit of back and forth. But now that we've got some more people in our live webinar, we're going to start with introducing our coaches today. So coaches, I'm going to turn it to each of you in turn, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself with the following three questions. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Maybe talk a little bit about why you chose coaching. Why is this the thing you love to do? And maybe talk a little bit about who is it that you love working with as a coach. So for today, Jill, I'm going to toss it over to you for the first introduction.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Heather. And hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our webinar. Um, my name is Jill Shillabeer. I use she and they pronouns, and I am based in Amiskwaciwâskahikan, which is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Really excited to chat with you all this morning about coaching. Why I chose coaching, really what it means to me, I had the benefit, about 10 years ago of having a supervisor. I worked for someone who was also a coach, and she brought coaching into how she worked with us. And I really appreciated that style of holding everyone who worked under her as both accountable for the work that we worked on, but capable of doing it, and really encouraging us to grow in our own strength and our own confidence as we made decisions and brought forward proposals. So it's really transformational for me, and I wanted to explore that more. So I really got involved in the coaching space at that time, started working with a coach, learning about coaching, and finding that whole approach, the coach approach, really matches my philosophy that each of us are the experts in our own lives. And given the time and space, we can when we have that time and space to think things through, which is really what coaching is at its core, is creating that time and space and a little bit of structure to think through issues, challenges where we're stuck. We're each the best person to come up with our own decisions and our own path forward. And for the third question of who do I love working with, I love working with lots of different people. Variety is fun for me. But the folks I love working with the absolute most are people who've often been on the sidelines of coaching. People who are kind of in that early career, mid career stage, even students. who are sort of transitioning from that place of having a job to wanting to be deliberate about what their careers are going to be, and wanting to plan for the future, and think about what that means to them. And also, of course, absolutely love working with folks from the 2S LGBTQ plus community, helping them get more agency in the space of their careers, their lives, whatever it is that they're looking for. So that is me.
Great. Thanks so much, Jill. And I love the concept if we have some space within which to explore. I mean, Virginia Woolf said ages ago, a woman needs a room of her own in order to write. And I think a room of her own is a bit of a metaphor for that space we all need to take. Aisha, I'd love to turn it over to you now to hear a little bit about you, why you love coaching and who you love to work with.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. And I'm so grateful to be here today with some folks I'm very, very much fans of, Jill and Inya. So my name is Aisha Hassan. I am calling to you all from Fort Worth, Texas. I use she, her pronouns, and I chose coaching quite similarly to Jill, actually, because I have seen the power of really great transformational coaching myself. I've been the beneficiary of brilliant coaching, and I never saw myself as someone that would be coached, to be perfectly honest. I didn't think that that was something that I would personally do. And so I really aim at making coaching as accessible for as many folks as possible. Now, that second question around, I forget the exact wording around it, but ultimately I have a little bit more about me is that I have about a decade of experience in direct service, advocacy, and organizing for displaced communities. And in my coaching work today, I aim to serve individuals and groups who may not see themselves typically reflected in the coaching industry. So thinking of folks who have experienced displacement or migration. I love coaching a wide range of folks, really. I think it keeps things exciting, and there's just so much diversity all over the place. But I also enjoy coaching folks who are new to the US and navigating new systems while still trying to remain true and honoring their own culture and their own heritage. Additionally, I really enjoy coaching both newcomers and US born folks alike around how to get more involved in the communities. We're living in a pretty unusual moment in time, and a lot of folks are curious about how they can take action, how they can get involved. And so I really look forward to coaching folks on how they can build community intentionally. And yeah, I think that's a little bit about me and who I'm hoping to work with. Thank you, Heather.
Great. Thanks, Aisha. And what a great way of really wanting to recognize people where they're at and where they're from. And that, while coaching might be forward looking, it isn't forward looking in the absence of knowing where you've come from. And how great to be able to bring that into a space where that isn't traditionally brought in. So thanks for sharing that with us. Inyam, let's turn it to you. I would love to hear more about you and your path through coaching.
All right. So just a quick check. Is my audio okay? Because we had lots of fun in our tech run through with my audio. So
you sound brilliant.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Inyam Griggs. I am principal and chief at OG Coaching and Consulting. We work with people to help them navigate change with confidence. So I worked in investment banking for some 20 years, and anyone who has ever worked with me will tell you that I was very people focused, very people centric. And so I like to say that coaching found me. But a few years ago, I had a really transformational coaching experience. And through some changes that I've gone through over the past few years, I realized that I wanted to have a more direct impact with people. And that I as we kind of talk about in coaching, the naming and claiming. And so I was able to name how I wanted to work with people through coaching and consulting, and have really embraced it over the past few years. So the question of who do I love to work with? I thought about this. I said, how do I answer this question? And I thought about what are the attributes that really describe me. And so intense was one of the first ones that came to mind. was intense. And so I really love working with intense people. I love working with high achievers. We'll get into some more of that as we go throughout this conversation. But I love working with people where we're starting off with a foundation of we're capable. We expect this. We've got very high personal standards, and we expect that we are capable of doing this. And it's just about having that conversation and getting creative about how we get there. So that is me.
Thanks so much. And I love this concept that coaching isn't just for a single group of people. It's for anyone. It's for the people who are already doing amazing in their lives and can still do more amazing. It's for the people who are already doing amazing at their lives in a totally different way because their lives look totally different and they can do amazing things off in this direction. It's for people who have come here and are doing amazing things simply by coming to a new place and taking that, a brave stance, and then are going to do amazing things maybe in a different direction, and recognizing that coaching kind of fits everywhere along that path is really exciting. So as we dive in, I think one of the things that comes up a lot is people don't always know what we mean by coaching. We hear a lot of other terms that get tossed around. Mentoring and coaching often get used interchangeably. Coaching and therapy get confused as the same things, which they aren't. So Inya, maybe I can ask you to kick us off for a little bit and talk about what are some of the most common misconceptions about coaching that you hear and you just want to kick out of the conversation.
I love that metaphor because that is how I feel. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So top misconceptions that I hear about coaching, the number one, and I don't know that people are aware that they feel this way, but this is what happens when a person shows up for coaching. They say, I have this situation. I need you to tell me how to get out of it. Or I have a place I want to go to. I have a goal and I need you to guide me on that. And so that's that first misconception, is that we're telling you what to do. Coaching is not telling you what to do. Coaching is a guided conversation. It is a partnership. It is a partnership that is designed to help bring about awareness so that we can draw out those insights that only you know best. I would never say, you know what, I'm going to tell Jill how to decorate her house so that she can have the piece that she wants. I'm not Jill. Jill's Jill. I have some great ideas for decorating, but they work great for me in my house, not Jill in her house. So I'm sure my husband is telling me to stop with the metaphors. But anyways, so that's the first one. The second misconception is, and we touched on it a little bit, is that coaching is therapy, or that they're interchangeable. Hard no on that one. So therapy is more past focused, whereas coaching is forward focused. In coaching, do we look at your past? Of course we do. It's a part of who you are. It's how you came to be where you are. It's sometimes necessary to leverage to get that forward momentum that you want. But to use another metaphor, if you were to have a Mary Poppins bag of all of your past negative experiences, anything from an uncomfortable situation to trauma to grief, in therapy, we're going to hold that bag. We're going to dive into that bag. We're going to move some things around. I mean, we're spending a lot of time in that space to change your relationship with it. Whereas in coaching, what we're doing is we may acknowledge it, we may leverage it, we may use it, but the bag is kind of off to the side. And it is something that we might have to visit, but we are so goal-oriented and forward-focused. The other myth is that we have to be an expert in the field, that we have to know your work to help you move forward. It's about getting to know you. It's about getting to know your thoughts, your behaviors, your inspiration, your ambition. I don't need to know how to skydive to help you get clarity around your decision. If you want to be an instructor or if you want to be the best skydiver ever. So that's the other one. And then the last one that I'll speak on is that coaching is paying someone to listen to you. It is so much more than listening. It is a big part of it. We have to be deep listeners because we are listening for the things that are unsaid, that are unspoken. But there are many layers to coaching, and we'll talk a lot about that today. But it is not just listening.
Super. Thanks so much. And I'm not going to pop back on screen because I don't want to interrupt the conversation too much, but I heard a lot about lived experience in there. And so, Jill, I wanted to come to you and ask you a little bit about how does lived experience, yours or someone you're working with, inform how you sort of approach and think about coaching?
Oh, yeah. So I think this goes back to the idea of the individual who is accessing coaching, or the coachee, as they're sometimes called, um, how they find their solutions. They are the expert in their life. So they're bringing all of that expertise, and we are bringing expertise around managing a conversation and making sure that that conversation is productive and leading to a place where the person being coached can kind of, as Iniam said, they can reference what's behind them. They can figure out where they are. They can decide for themselves where they want to go, and we're sort of helping steward that. We're kind of the riverbanks in that conversation, and making sure that things are flowing in the direction uh, where they want to get to. Recognizing all of the I'm gonna go with metaphors because Inyam is doing metaphors really well, and I would like to be as good at it as her, so I need to practice. But um, we're in this river, we're flowing together. We are the riverbanks. The person is the water moving through it, and we might see, oh, there's some rocks over there. Things are a little bit more shallow over here. Are they actually shallow? Do they just look shallow? Let's test out what that truth is, and lived experience is really going to inform that. For us as coaches, in terms of our lived experience and how we bring that to the conversation, sometimes it's just recognizing, oh, yep, been there. That's tough. Really understanding and being able to reflect that understanding. But again, the solution that was right for me isn't going to be right for the person who's being coached, because they are not me. There might be elements of it for sure that are similar, absolutely, but it's really so important for people to be mired in what their own experience is, so that they can be realistic, be intentional, and be forward looking in the way that makes the most sense for them, their comfort level, and all, and what it is that they want to get to. Um, we all have that difference. So, but our lived experience is also going to inform how we show up in coaching as coaches. So it's going to be our style. It's going to be what you're comfortable with, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But really, just who we are as people in the space will make that difference there. But yeah, we don't need to have gone through the same thing, be going through the same thing. We need to be able to be there to help that individual find their way through that situation.
I really appreciate that, Jill. And I want to turn it to Aisha now. And I really want to dive in a little bit more. As you said, coaching is sort of as the riverbanks, as guiding people. But we also know coaching is not always filled, the wonderful group we have here today notwithstanding, with a diverse representation of the population in a lot of traditional coaching. So Aisha, I want you to maybe talk a little bit more about who's less likely to access coaching, and what are some of the reasons that we might see people not accessing coaching in the same way?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Heather. I'll be honest, and since I knew this question was coming, I was like, "Ooh, I want to get some numbers. I want to figure, have something to go off of when I give this answer." And so I tried to do some research on who is receiving coaching, what are the demographics look like, and I'll be honest and say, it was not a very successful research effort. I did not find much. What I did find, however, was that the coaching industry does unfortunately have a bit of a representation challenge. So what do I mean by this? In a 2024 report by the International Coaching Federation, which is the industry's largest global ethical body, this report shared that only, and I'm going to read off for a second, only 10.8% of its membership identified as Black or African American, and only 2.9% identified as Hispanic, non-white. And that was pretty much where the demographics information stopped. So why am I even bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because I truly and deeply believe that representation matters. When we don't see ourselves represented in the providers of any service, we can tend to feel removed from the service and completely excluded altogether from the experience. So what can happen, and what has been my experience and what I've seen experiences being reflected back to me, is that when people are looking into coaching, if they don't necessarily see people like themselves reflected in the coaches out there, it can be a deterrent, and people can feel like, oh, this may not be for people like me. And so what we can see is people not finding coaching as a viable way to support their personal or professional growth if they don't see themselves or people like them being represented in the practitioners of coaching. And so what we tend to see is that people who are coming from groups that tend to be marginalized may not access coaching because there's a perception of, oh, this isn't for us. That paired with a very real barrier of cost can make coaching seem inaccessible to a lot of folks. Coaching can range from, relatively, depending on who you're speaking to, reasonable amounts to hundreds of dollars per session, which may not be accessible to everyone. And so that's something that's very real when we're thinking about coaching and who has the ability to access coaching. Now, all of that being said, I know that, you don't necessarily, as Jill mentioned, need to be able to have lived that experience to coach someone. But I think that a lot can be said for being able to develop the psychological safety that folks may need to feel in order to be welcomed into the coaching space. And so that's something that I try to pride myself on, is creating psychologically safe environments to the extent that it is possible, knowing that there is never a truly psychologically safe environment, to be completely honest. But trying to remove as many barriers as possible so that folks who don't see themselves reflected in the coaching industry feel like, oh, maybe this is something I can check out. Maybe this is potentially for me.
That's really wonderful. And I'm going to pass it to Jill now, and I'm going to append a question onto a question here. So I'll repeat if I need to.
Okay.
It's building on the barriers to coaching, and you had previously mentioned how you like working with folks who might not traditionally see coaching as for them. So I want you to tell me a little bit more about why is coaching for everyone, but you also mentioned some specific populations that you love to support, such as the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. I love seeing coaches that support neurodivergence, because shock if you can't tell, I have some of the neurodivergence with my ADHD. So just tell me a little bit more about why coaching is for everyone, but also how coaching can be for people who might see barriers in other traditional methods of support.
For sure. And I just want to point out, we do have in the audience today, or in the participants, I don't know, audience, it sounds weird, but come on down, right? But we do have an ADHD coach who's here. So there's lots of people who specialize in different areas to help folks with different challenges they might be facing, or like Aisha said, to build that degree of psychological safety just from shared experience and shared identity factors. And yes, as was put into the chat, many of the ADHD coaches out there are neurodivergent themselves. We actually had a cohort conversation the other day where a lot of coaches came forward as neurodivergent in just a chat that Aisha and I were in. So there's a lot of space for different people in coaching. And I want to kind of pull back on something that Aisha said, particularly around cost. A lot of coaches also offer sliding scales when it comes to that piece. Thinking about, the folks I want to be working with the most, those early career folks who might not have as much disposable income as somebody who's further along in their career. That investment in coaching is a really important investment in self, but it also needs to be accessible. So it's important for people to kind of look for that when they're looking for a coach. But yeah, why is coaching for everyone? Well, quite frankly, everyone can get stuck. And coaching is about helping people get unstuck when they're facing something. That something could be as wide ranging as I want to take another step in my career. I want to be more intentional about my career, where I want to take it, to, you know, I'm a person who is later in life and I want to start dating again and I just don't know how to start, to, how am I going to face Christmas with my family? It's all over the map, really, what you can be coached about, but we can all get stuck. You don't have to be an executive to get stuck, though we do recognize executives also get stuck. And so, you know, it's really that idea of do you want to approach these challenges that you're facing by creating some space to stop and think, because when do we actually get that in our regular lives? Um, Creating that space for ourselves to stop, think, have someone help guide you through a conversation, have somebody keep you on track for the goal that you're looking for, um, and to recognize that you are the expert in your own life. So this is a little bit different from, I know we've all had that situation of we're challenged, we go, we sit down, we talk to a family member or we talk to a friend, and the response starts with, "Well, you should just." And then that's when we stop listening, or at least I do. And and it's just a little bit different in coaching. It's, exploring those elements of what's there, um, helping you to make that deliberate and deliberated choice about what you want, what you don't want, and how to go about achieving that for yourself. Um, it also can create that space for people who might want to explore what values are coming into their decision making and really starting to be able to name those values for themselves and really own them, because that's going to build that foundation to be able to go for forward more intentionally, more broadly in your life. So yeah, it's really about being available for everybody. And at any point, when you're facing a shift, when you're facing a change, when you're feeling stuck, um, moving from the space of reacting to those situations, which is what we are all often doing because we don't have time to think, or we haven't created that space for ourselves to be deliberate about it. So moving from reacting to and I'm stealing words from a conversation I had with Inyam earlier this week, to creating the reality that you choose, creating the path that you want to be taking forward in your life.
So I love that a lot. And I really love, as we've been talking about who might be excluded from some of the coaching, also recognizing that some of the folks who might not have seen coaching for them probably, or might not have also had as many experiences of agency in their lives, and coaching being able to provide some of that agency back seems like that might be a very powerful opportunity for folks to really regain some of that sense of who they truly are and where they want to go. And I think that's really neat. And which leads me to my next question for Inyam, which is, as someone myself who would have been considered a high achiever at various stages of their career, I also didn't always have a lot of agency in the decisions that were made that put me on that high achiever path. So can you tell me a little bit about how coaching can really help high achievers, in addition to sort of folks who might also want to navigate, more familial problems or social problems? Let's talk a little bit about high achievers now.
I love that you use the word agency. That really resonates with me. When I think about your typical high achiever, they typically have a strong sense of agency, even amidst change that they're often creating that change. They are often the even as a recipient of change, say my work got reorganized or I was laid off or, a tragic thing happened, high achievers have a really high sense of, I would say, empowerment. And what comes with that? When I think about the typical high achiever, very goal oriented, regulate themselves well, have a high sense of accomplishment and what I would consider an outsized expectation. I just want to be like, because that's how big it is, like this outsized expectation of success. And what comes with that is pressure, and it is self-inflicted pressure. I mean, they are their worst critic. Coaching is an opportunity to, this is the ego part of speaking for myself as a high achiever. It's an opportunity to level up. It is an opportunity to work with someone to say, let's look at my behaviors, let's look at my patterns, let's look at my thoughts. What's not serving me? What's actually going to help me to be better in this ambitious pursuit? When I go back to the pressure side of it, because we have this high sense of accomplishment, pacing, momentum, this go, it's idea that I've committed to, and then the action, there's like very little space between the idea and the action. We are not often pausing to really examine and evaluate just how we're functioning. And so coaching gives people an opportunity, these high achievers, an opportunity to pause, to slow down, and to really examine, do I even want this anymore? Do I even want this anymore? Why do I want this? Why is this considered success for me? The other thing, when I think about high achievers, is it's kind of a lonely place. It can be a lonely space to be in, because a lot of people don't get it. And there's also high achievers don't have, I had this conversation with Jill. I'm just reflecting on it as I'm talking, where I'm like, nothing personal. I'm thinking about, did I give this link to any of my neighbors? Where I'm like, I don't really want to go to the cul-de-sac barbecue because I have stuff to do that I want to do that's super important. And it's not that I don't like spending time with you, but it's kind of like down here on my list of priorities. And so coaching is a time of it can be an efficient time to help you to continue moving forward on what is important to you. So I'll stop there because I feel like I talked a lot, and hopefully I answered the question.
Can I just hop in?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm actually just opening this because both of you have had great facial reactions, so go.
I think I really like that idea of, it's an efficient time to focus on moving towards what's important to you, but it's also really important in that it defines what's important to you. And you get the opportunity to self-define that. So, and I think this applies to high achievers. I think it applies to people who've who've experienced marginalization for a lot of different reasons as well. This applies to everybody. We have all had expectations put on us of one way or another. And it might be an expectation that you are, operating or achieving at a really high level. Heather, you mentioned that, sort of leading into the question of having that label applied to you. It can be an expectation also of what people say you can't do. And coaching really makes that space for somebody to self-define that, to park all of those externals and to come up with what is the internal. Who do I want to be in the world, and how do I want to be in the world, and where do I want to go? And take a minute to decide what around that is just noise, that somebody has said that we can or can't do. I was in a coaching session recently where, we talked about the value of the FU energy that you can have in terms of achieving your goals. A lot of people have said no to you because of bias, because of who they perceive you to be. And that's maybe not accurate to who you are, or maybe even because of how they perceive the way your brain works, how they perceive, um, your talents. And coaching gives you the space to say, okay, this is what I value. This is where I want to go. This is how I want to get there. And whether it's part of that is I'm not going to the cul-de-sac barbecue, or part of it is what I really want is more community. And so I'm going to the I'm gonna make the cul-de-sac barbecue, and I'm gonna get in Yam there. Whatever it happens to be, it's really up to you.
Aisha, do you want to jump on in there?
Yeah, I think, yeah, so much of what Jill and Ian said resonated with me. I think the space that coaching provides you to define, but even before you define, to explore. Like you have one-on-one time with someone whose sole purpose is to get you wherever you want to go and create a space where you can explore what that direction looks like. So even I've had clients that come into a session and they're like, oh, I don't actually know what I want to talk about today. And I'm like, okay, what's on your mind? Like giving that space, and you may not come in and be like, this is what I want out of coaching. That I want this at this moment right now. But having like a bit of like pressure-free space, just explore what's coming up for you, what's on your heart and mind at a certain time, has been so beneficial to me. And I think just that act of holding space is one of the main reasons my clients appreciate the practice itself.
Yeah, we often forget that how important play is in our lives, and play doesn't end when we're kids. It might just look different when we're adults, and for some of us, play looks like just thinking and talking and exploring, and we don't often give ourselves that time to play with who we are and where we want to go. So I want to keep going on that, and Aisha, I'm going to stay with you actually right now, and I want you to talk a little bit more about, so what might coaching look like in practice? Maybe you've got someone who came in and they don't know what they want today, or maybe you've got someone who really wants to work with you, but they're halfway across the country. What can coaching look like? Like practically, what can it look like?
Yeah, thanks for that question again, Heather. Yeah, so looking at coaching from like a more like practical sense, coaching, and please hear me when I say this, take this with a pinch of salt, because coaching can look a little different depending on the type of coaching that you're doing and who you're coaching with. It's going to vary from person to person. Coaching can be done virtually on a platform like Zoom or Teams, etc. It can be done over the phone. If you've got visual overstimulation kind of challenges, you can do it over the phone, or you can do it in person with somebody face to face as well. The length of a session again can vary, but typically, if you're doing one-on-one coaching, from what I've seen, sessions are anywhere from 20 minutes, usually being the minimum, to up to 60 minutes per session. And this really depends on what the coach in question's offerings are and what the need of the client are as well. And so that can really shift and change. Now, getting to the actual like in-session coaching, one thing that's important to remember is that, and we've touched on this at multiple points throughout the discussion, is that the topic of your coaching session is always identified and decided by you, the client. We do not come in with any agenda. We are purely here to serve you as the client. So you're the driver of the session, and the coach is really guiding you, helping you navigate this journey. The coach typically does this if the coach is following an ICF approach. Again, the ICF is that International Coaching Federation, which all of us are trained in. The coach does this by identifying what we call an agreement, right? And so an agreement is essentially an outcome that you hope to get to by the end of your session. And you don't have to come in knowing exactly what your agreement is. That's where we come in. That's where we're skilled and we're trained to help find out what that through line is that you want to tug at. And once we have this agreement, so you've identified what you want to get out of the session, we help you get there by listening actively, by making observations of what we're seeing and hearing, and by asking thought-provoking questions that'll really help you to kind of peel back the layers of your current approach to the situation or to the topic at hand, to help you be able to see what you want more clearly, or in the service of getting you to that outcome. And a lot of what we do in that space and time, I'll just share as well, is being silent, letting you sit with what you're saying and what you're offering. Now, you're not paying us to come into a session and for us to sit there zip mouth. Let me make that very clear. But I think there's something so powerful in having someone to sit with you, listen to you, and give you the space to process, and not immediately jump in with a follow-up question, but allow you that space to really let things sink in. And I'll pause there and see if there's anything else that anybody else wants to contribute to that.
Yeah, I think that's really wonderful. And as you talk about sort of, again, everything we've been hearing today is really about the personalization, the meeting the client where they're at. And so I'm going to turn our last sort of formal question over to Jill now, which is, so can you talk a little bit about why the right coach matters and what might you be looking for when you're looking for a coach?
Absolutely. And I think, a couple of things have come up today that really highlight that. And Aisha was just talking about one of them, is this idea that we're really there to listen and kind of pull the things out. A lot of the time when we're talking in our lives, we don't even hear ourselves. We don't even know what we're saying, right? How many times in a day have you been like, wait a minute, what was I just saying? And you've got somebody there who's really listening to you. You need to be able to be comfortable with that person. That fundamentally is important. So that sort of nebulous idea of chemistry um, is so valuable in coaching, because if we're going to sit in silence together and you don't trust me, you're not going to be in that situation thinking about what you need to be thinking about to move yourself forward towards that outcome that you want to achieve. You're going to be doing all of this other negotiation in your head. So, feeling trust and safety with the person that you're coaching is so important. And then that comfort and ease, that style piece, that chemistry piece. So, we'll just put it in the space. If somebody doesn't want to talk about FU energy, I'm probably not the coach for you. And that's okay. Everybody's got their own different way of approaching things, and the energy that they bring into the space. You've probably seen over the course of this conversation that we all bring a different energy into the space, and we all are just different people. We've got different lived experiences. So, but it's the same service. Coaching is the same service. So, there's always an opportunity as a client, or there should always be an opportunity as a client to book a discovery call or a scoping call. Everybody calls it something a little bit different, a getting to know you call. That's usually no cost in a session, or when you're meeting with a potential coach, to really just get that sense of like, who are they, what's their philosophy, what are they going to bring, do I feel comfortable with them, are they somebody I can be vulnerable in front of, which is not to say that you have to show up at coaching and cry your eyes out. It's not necessary, but it might happen, depending on what it is that you want to talk about and what we kind of uncover through that conversation. So really somebody that you feel good about is so important. It's something that you're not going to be second guessing whether or not they're judging you. Coaches don't judge. It's a huge part of coaching. It's a non-judgmental space, but you also need to be able to feel that from that person. And sometimes that's pairing up some identity factors or some lived experience. Sometimes it's just, as the kids would say, the vibes. So it's really up to you who the right coach is for you, and you're never stuck with a coach. That's another thing, is that coaches that align with the International Coaching Federation's code of ethics always have an exit clause, because if you get into coaching and you find that you're not comfortable with your coach, you need to have a way to terminate that, and that that aligns with that code of ethics that we ascribe to as part of that coaching community. So, so yeah, there's an opportunity to try folks on, see how it goes, and if it doesn't go, to change. And usually coaches have pretty good networks of other coaches and can refer you to somebody who might be a better match.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And I love, the concept. Aisha put it in the comments saying chemistry sessions, vibe checks. And I really love sort of figuring out maybe where the TikTok phrase, we listen and we don't judge, came from. That clearly was a coaching place where that coaching vibe, where that one came from. So that's the end of my questions, all for you, except for my last one, which is, before we open the floor to some questions from our audience, and I have prompted them all to get those questions into the chat, I have one sort of last quick go around for each of you, which is, I really want to hear from you. What is the one message that you are hoping someone takes away from this webinar, from this session that you had today? So Aisha, I'm going to start with you and ask you, what is your final thought? What's your one takeaway?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I think my final, thought that I'd love to leave people with is that coaching is not about fixing anything. It's about inviting you, the client, to see your potential more fully and lead with your inherent wisdom. So everything that helps and provides clarity in coaching is coming from within.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it now to Jill and ask Jill to pop up, give her thoughts here.
Yeah, my final thought is anyone can access coaching. It's really for everyone. It's not just for executives, though executives are welcome. Anybody who's feeling stuck in one way or another, just wants a thinking partner to sit with and move forward with.
Great, thanks. And last but certainly not least, Inyam, do you want to share with us your final thought?
Thank you. So my final thought around coaching is that I really, really want to urge you to see it as a tool that almost like an all-purpose type of a tool where it can be what you need. And part of that encouragement is to encourage you to try out different coaches, have those discovery conversations. I echo Jill that there's typically should not be any cost around having that initial conversation, and see what fits for you. And so just an urge to have you try coaching.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. All right, coaches, we have some thoughts in the chat here. So let me just do a quick look here. So we have a question here about how do you actually explain coaching to a prospective client without having their eyes glaze over as you go through all of the things that are really important if you're going to create safety in a space, but some of us get a little lazy. How do you manage that? Let's hop that one to Jill. Has a smirk. I'm going with Jill. Jump on in, my friend.
I have a permanent smirk. I think that's that's not true, actually. No, I think it is a challenge, right? To find a way to describe something in a way that people will understand it and not be, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. But not is a helpful parameter. So I like to try to use some metaphors. I talked earlier about that river, the river banks. I'm there to help guide you through the conversation, guide you through the thinking process. I'm your thinking partner, but I'm not there to decide for you. I'm not there to make those decisions. I do like to let folks who are seeking coaching know it is up to them to come with what they want to talk about. We'll explore that. We'll figure it out, come to that agreement that Aisha talked about. But what really sits underneath this is this idea of we're there to non-judgmentally, supportively work towards finding your path forward that makes sense for you.
Perfect. Aisha or Inyam, either one want to jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, jump on in, Aisha.
Sorry, Anya. I think I just echo everything Jill said, and something that I use today is that it's a coaching is a space where you have a thought partner solely dedicated towards your outcome that you want without an alternative agenda. It's a space where you can feed off of someone else's inquisitive questions. So just someone to help you think through things a little bit more clearly is something that I like to share with folks as well.
Perfect. And Inyam, any thoughts from you on this?
No, I
Keep
think that
people
was
from glazing over. You good?
I think that covers it. Yeah, well, we
That's
can move
fair.
on. Yeah.
We don't need everyone else to glaze over either. We have another question. So this is sort of a two-parter or a double-barreled question. What have you enjoyed most working in coaching, and what has been the most challenging as you have been working in coaching? Inyam, I'm going to jump to you. Yeah.
I'm like, pick me. What I've enjoyed most about working in this profession has been all the learning that I've been doing. I love learning different things, and because coaching is more than active listening, it is being a mirror for your client. It is creating that safety, creating the conditions that are most conducive to having this fruitful conversation, getting them from A to B. It requires a range of skill sets, and I have loved picking up those skill sets. The second thing that I've enjoyed about working in this profession is that because coaching is not just fixing, sometimes it's I'm here and this is good and I want more of this good. I want to accelerate this, or I want to see how I can expand this, or I just want to kind of temperature check this. It's been really cool to have a lot of conversations that have a just like a abundance, an abundance flavor, an abundance mindset to it. Most challenging, shutting up, shutting my mouth. I love to talk. I do. I was always the kid that got the most talkative. I remember in fifth grade, as I talk on now, my teacher moved me, like she moved me next to someone else. And then that person became talkative. And then I was moved like 5 times in the fifth grade. And it's like, I'm the problem, like, unless you move me out of the class. So anyways, that has been a fun challenge, is to really remember that being in service to the client is allowing them to go.
And on that note, does anyone else want to jump in? Jill, I'll pass to you without further commentary.
Also talkative. But I do. One of the things I love most in life, and I had the benefit of doing some leadership development work around 10 years ago, where we kind of figured out what really lit us up. And one of the things that lights me up so much is seeing other people connect with their own agency. That moment where somebody realizes I can is invigorating, absolutely invigorating. And you can see people just start to soar. And I love it. So for me, meeting new people, getting to see them move into that space, and sometimes it's really small. It's just a really like, oh wait, but I can. Or wait, that's not true. That's, something that I've been told to believe, but it's not actually really true. Those little shifts are, yeah, absolutely invigorating. Most challenging, I just want to go back to the last question and say, describing to people what coaching is has been challenging. So I'm just thankful for this space where we can really talk about it and help people kind of see where it might fit in their lives.
Super. And Aisha, did you want to jump in and share what you love most and what's most challenging?
Honestly, I very similar to Jill and Inyam. I think just being able to be a resource for folks to step into their own power has been really brilliant. And I think one of the most challenging things for me about this whole experience is knowing that there is, from my side, there's always room to improve. It's both a gift and a challenge. Just, I'll finish a session and be like, I wish I'd asked this question instead. But just always knowing that I can always improve a little bit more. And there's no such thing as like a perfect session. Is something that I try to embrace.
I love that. Probably a pretty good mindset for a coach too, that's trying to get others to realize that there's perhaps no perfect future, just the one that you are creating with them or helping them to create. We have a couple more questions in the chat. This one's going to get a little bit more technical. We were talking earlier about barriers to access and how cost can be a barrier to access. So I'm going to drop this one to Jill first and then open it up to anyone else. But can you talk a little bit about how your fee structure is set, or how you might support those that aren't able to access coaching, or if there's programs out there for folks to donate to?
Absolutely. So a couple of folks that I've talked to are working on connecting with nonprofits and trying to figure out ways to make coaching more accessible to different people who might be accessing services through those nonprofits. So stay tuned for more information on that. But I think and that sort of sponsorship approach of being able to donate and sponsor coaching sessions. We know a few folks who are doing work in that space, and there's a couple on this call. And the other thing is, when it comes to the structure, the sliding scale structures, every coach is going to be a little bit different. So I can say for myself, I've got kind of 3 levels that I work with. I have always got a few spots that are pro bono for full-time students, just because I'm passionate about education. That really matters to me, and really building students up and getting them set up for success. Uh, it's limited offering, but it is something that's always there. And then I have 2 different rates that I charge. And one rate is for people who are earning an income, and one rate is for people who are not earning an income. And it's as simple as that. I know a lot of folks who have been staying at home with their kids and they want to re-enter the workforce. They're not earning an income, so there's barriers to them to access coaching. So want to make sure that it's accessible for them, and then really try to set this fee structure at a level where it feels like something that people can access. And part of that is trial and error, and figuring all of that out. But really just want to make sure that that people can come to a conversation and get to where they need to go in a good way.
That's great. I'm going to ask one more question because we are rapidly closing in on our hour. So, Inyam, I'm going to throw this one to you right now, which is, can you talk, what is a reasonable expectation that someone should have of a coach? Like, what's the real impact you think they're going to provide, or they could provide?
I love this question because it's really an opportunity to set the expectation and to level set. When you go into a coaching space and you ask for clarity around a decision, there's that agreement that Aisha spoke of. And so early in the conversation, you should be talking about, what does the end of this conversation look like? How do I know that, when we set to build this building, that it's the building that I'm expecting and that I'm happy with and that works for me? What we cannot do in coaching is guarantee you your promotion, guarantee you your raise, your change in life. Think about my husband, who's a financial advisor, and there is the market that is, and we cannot predict, nor can we guarantee what the market's going to do. And those things have an impact on your financial portfolio. And so there are many factors that may impact the having of what you want, or the getting to where you want to get. And so those are things that we can't necessarily guarantee or confirm what will or won't be. So that when I talk about reasonable expectation, what I would say is that you should be very, very clear at the beginning as to what the end of the conversation looks like, or what the 3 to 6 months, what that journey looks like, and setting out some measurable, tangible ways to recognize that you have arrived together at the same point, but understanding that there are certain things that we can't guarantee.
Wonderful. And I think that's really good to set those expectations so folks know what they are prepared for. I am going to give one last quick question to Aisha before I wrap us up. And that is, I have some words I've jotted down. I'm going to turn on my camera so I'm not the weird voice in the ether. I have heard today transformational by all of you. I've heard agency. I have heard values. I have heard safety and representation, and sort of lived experience and creating. Is there anything else? Is there another word you'd want to add in that really comes into the imaginary wordle in my head right now of words that kind of sum up coaching?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I have so many words, and I'm like, which one do I pick? I think I think the question, the word I want to land on is self-empowerment. It's, you know, it's all those things kind of really kind of land, and we're here as the guides, but the client is doing the work, and this is really their success is our success.
Wonderful. That's a great way to end. And so with that, as we close out, I'm going to pop our little contact overlay up on screen here and say a heartfelt thank you to our coaches, Jill, Inyam, and Aisha, for coming together today and spearheading an opportunity to have a really honest and frank conversation about what coaching is, who it's for, and what it looks like. There will be a recording of this available at some point. All of our coaches' contact information is up on screen and has been popped into the chat for all of you. And we are really hoping that you keep in touch and reach out to our coaches, see what might be able to be done, and follow along on their socials for what the coaches are up to next and what the next coffee discussion might look like. With that, thank you all for coming. Have a safe and wonderful day, and stay healthy and happy in the global everything. Take care, folks.